everyone. Welcome to Masters of Data. I'm Adam White, Senior Director of Technical Marketing. I have with me Zoe Hawkins and David Gervin. Hello, friends. Good to see you
Hi.
again.
Always good to
Hello.
see you.
Yeah, today we're going to be talking about security is observability and observability is security. It's something the three of us talk about a lot, that there really aren't as strong differences between, those groups as might appear sometimes. And so, the question to kind of kick things off, are security analysts, are SOC analysts, and SREs are they actually besties? Are they actually best friends?
I mean, we know they hate each other. Like I can see on David's face. He's like,
Tolerate,
never
hate,
anti-besties.
strong, strong words.
Nemesis. Nemesis.
Strong words. Strong words.
Bestie is too strong a word.
I think they have an annoyance between them just due to the incident life cycle. I feel like they can be besties if you have a good security culture and you've kind of like implemented bridges and broke down silos. They could be besties. They could go get ice
Yeah.
cream or a beer.
Maybe that's what they should do more often is collaborate on fun things
Stop, collaborate, and
and
listen.
listen.
Take a lesson from MC Hammer
I
or
mean,
Ice. No. Oh no, it's Ice Ice Baby, isn't it?
Yeah, Vanilla Ice. Yeah.
Yeah, Vanilla
yeah,
I
Ice.
could do the
Sorry.
whole thing for you right now if you
yeah.
want, but
That could
I don't
be the
want
I
rest of the
can.
podcast. I feel like we're done now.
yeah.
We just
I
need to
mean, I
end
could ride a
to,
wheelie next to a racing horse as well if we need to get into our
oh my
vanilla
gosh,
ice.
yes.
Wow. Deep cuts. Deep cuts.
Um,
But yeah, I mean, especially in smaller companies, it feels like they're often either the same person or small groups, and so they can kind of be at odds, when an incident happens. And let's be honest, when an incident occurs, no matter the size of the business, it's stressful and it's intense, and you don't want it to be your problem, quote unquote, or have something to do with the way you've configured the environment or whatever the case may be. But at the end of the day, again, you've got to drive forward the incident for the better of the business and your customers. And so, culture plays a big part in that of like, how is the business driving forward when you're kind of at your worst, and those sides of the business, quote unquote, working together in an efficient way is, you know, paramount. It's super important.
Oh yeah. I mean, I think ultimately like my big thing is, I keep thinking but if there's downtime, the customer, the end user does not care if it's because you're victim of a malicious
Right.
actor or some
Yeah.
developer pushed bad code or your infrastructure fell over. Like as an end user, like I tried to do it this morning. I was like, okay, like I need to pay my mortgage. Let me log on and like check banking thing. And they're like, we're sorry, our payments are down. And I'm like, well, that doesn't help me. Like, I have
Yeah.
things to do. Like, I don't know if I'm going to remember to check this again later today. Like, this sucks as a user experience. I don't care why you're down. I don't, doesn't,
Yeah.
it's of no interest to me. I just want this thing to work so I can move on with my day.
Right.
And so like for the team solving these things, obviously there, is it a cloud issue? Is it an infrastructure issue? Is it a security issue? Almost, they need to solve it and those teams are responsible. But ultimately, like as a business, it's a downtime or a issue, reliability issue or security issue. They're all the same, really, in
Yeah.
terms of user experience.
Equal opportunity for reputational damage.
Yeah.
I mean, when I first started saying that, people would get really mad at me about 6 years ago. Like during the
Mm.
whole DevSecOps push, I used
How
to be
did you
like,
say it though, David? No, I'm just kidding.
so I'd say security is observability. You're on the same damn team. Stop bitching at each other and get the incident fixed. But there's like a few reasons for it though. One, I mean, part of it is because we have to have a SKU for every damn tool instead of just looking at things holistically. So it's partially like the marketing and this go-to-market's fault for convincing people they need to do things a certain way. But the other part of it, like, is culture. When I was an AppSec architect, my job wasn't, I mean, yes, I wrote a lot of policy and I designed a lot of like workflows and all these kind of things and did a lot of pen testing and but a lot of my job was building bridges. And it wasn't just me becoming friends with devs and SREs and, all that kind of stuff. It was me making them talk, me making the SOC and the SREs talk. And I still think my job is professional bridge builder, but it doesn't go over well on the resume. But it's the same.
Engineering it either way, whether
Everybody wants to be a special little butterfly and think that their job is like inherently so different from everybody else's. But the reality is you're just trying to keep shit working so the company can make money. And when it stops working, whether it's security or infrastructure or whatever, you're all stuck in the same room and you can tell immediately what your culture is. If you start blaming each other and you're trying to put blame, that's because the way that you think about being good at your job is that you don't make mistakes, right? As opposed to the way that I think about being good in those jobs is how are we improving? Because nothing's perfect, but how are we like pushing towards excellence in these different ways? Everybody's going to push bad code. Everybody's going to have a Kubernetes cluster that falls over 5,000 damn times, and everybody's going to get hacked. So we have to like look differently at how we're judging what a success is in those positions, I think.
You
yeah,
mentioned,
oh,
oh, sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
well, one of the things you mentioned, because I know you love blaming marketing, but I'm going to point the finger at finance as well on this
Oh yeah.
one. Because the reason go to market, the reason marketing targets these things differently is because different people have different budgets. And so the
Yep.
security team has their budget, and maybe the SRE team has a budget, and maybe developers get some pennies too. Um, depends on the company.
$5.
$5 to buy a tool. Where security can buy all the solutions they need. No, but there is that piece of like, depending on the company's budget and who owns what, those tools, those solutions could be coming from different teams, and thus you have marketing or whoever, go to market organizations that target that budget, and say, this is a solution for you and for the money you have. And I think that's also maybe why we see more collaboration in smaller companies than in the bigger companies. Because, like, if you have one CTO or whatever who has all the money for all the programmer technically people, whatever you want to call them, then it's all one budget, it's all one pot, and people can collaborate in the same tools. I think as soon as you start getting big enough that you're like, well, needs to be a separate team with a separate budget, that's when some of these silos start sprouting up.
You hit on something there that's very true. Everything is actually CFO's fault.
There we go.
I mean, across the board. If our CFO is listening, please don't lay me off. But everything is CFO's fault because that culture comes down. You have to fight for your bit of the pie. So you silo yourself because you're like, this is my pie. Get away from my pie. And then the other guy's like, no, he doesn't need that much pie. I need more pie. And the CFO is like, you have to fight about it. Pull your swords out and have a duel.
Hunger Games.
Yeah, so now I have a new person to blame across the board for everything. CFOs out there, you're ruining tech. Thank you.
There you go. There we go.
Adam's
Adam is
dying
like,
over
Adam
here.
is like, can you
Adam's like,
please stop ruining this podcast?
David's
No, no,
about to get
no.
fired.
It's good discussion. It's very good discussion. I mean, I think, yeah, the cultural element of it, like everybody has a stake in that. I think
Mm.
is a way to boil that down. It's like, but to circle back to like, does the customer care? The customer doesn't care. They just want to
Mhm.
be able to pay their mortgage or check out, online or whatever the case may be, right? Not that anybody wants to pay their mortgage, but yeah,
Everybody wants to pay their mortgage.
everybody wants to pay their mortgage.
And taxes.
Mhm.
Right, yeah. Oh no, the tax site's down. One thing that just in these discussions we keep talking about kind of observability, and I think that like security has like pretty much everybody knows what security means or the implications of it. Observability feels like a term that's like way more nebulous. It depends on who you ask as to what it means to the extent of that job that they do, like what is their job to be done, quote unquote, and how does it impact the business. I know like cloud operations is kind of where that term is heading seemingly. And I mean the question is like, are we just replacing one confusing term with another or umbrella with another? Cloud operations makes more sense to me, but I'm interested in how y'all kind of see like observability and maybe the move into not talking about it that way, talking about it more as like reliability or cloud operations.
I I think that's a lot better way to go. I think people wouldn't be so damn confused. You know, if you actually said what you did and you needed a tool for it, I feel like most sales engineers or like people selling that can look at it and be like, oh, I we could do that. But if you're like, we need an observability tool, well, what do you need? You need like tracing input in because you're trying to see like what the timeout on your checkout is, or do you need to see like how your cloud compute is doing in your infrastructure? Are you trying to look at, you know, Cloudflare stuff? Are you trying to look, I mean, what are you actually trying to look at? But we keep using these all encompassing terms. It's go to market still because everybody's trying to figure out a way to blast the biggest target audience they can with their name and try to pull those kind of sales in.
It can
I
kind of put you in a box too, like you need observability, therefore you should care about the whole of what melt is, in an environment. It's like not always,
Yeah,
not for everything. That may not actually solve your problem.
maybe golden signals aren't the best way for you to judge your stuff, you know? Like it everything's so things become very whoever wrote the cool paper um kind of gets to dictate some of the language. I tried. No one's picked up Mocop yet, but I'm working on it. Um, but it's if it was a dev-centric guy writing that stuff that doesn't do a lot of infrastructure stuff, then maybe it's not relevant to you, you know?
Yeah, I mean, as I have established in the past on this podcast, I am a wordy person, a languagey person. Words matter. And observability is one of those terms. I agree. It doesn't necessarily mean what people think it means to everybody. So it becomes this thing where, you talk to an engineering leader and it's like, what observability tools do you use? And they're like, what do you mean observability? And it's like,
Yeah.
okay, well, what are you using for your logs? What are you using for troubleshooting? What are you using to investigate problems? And it's like, oh, we use XYZ. Like, they can name their tool offhand or their solution offhand, but they don't necessarily think of it as an observability solution. They're like, oh, this is what I use to keep all of my logs or to track the metrics on the CPU or whatever it is. Like, and so I think that's where going back to the jobs to be done and some of the other language around reliability or cloud operations can help. But I think ultimately, we kind of have to almost stop trying to categorize these things and just help people. Like like ultimately, when you have an incident and you're in a war room, no one is like, well, my observability tool is better than your security tool. It's like, okay, who has the logs? Who has the actual
Yeah.
data that's needed to go figure this out? And the
Well, and
naming of that.
They're all on a Venn diagram too. Like exactly what you're saying.
I love a
But
Venn
it's like,
diagram.
Mhm.
are you doing heavy logs? I mean, that's what we do, right? Like with some
Mm-hmm.
metrics, because you need some metrics for some things. Okay. That can go across 15 different jobs, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Are you like really concentrating on cloud infrastructure with some security aspects there? Okay, well that's going to go across a bunch of different jobs. Are you doing tracing stuff and trying to go look at root cause with your logs afterwards? That's going to be a smaller group of people, but they're still going to be there. So you're right. Like we need to actually talk about like what are you doing and how do we provide value and like sell to that basically.
We were talking about this a little beforehand. It's like I just imagine in a war room, you're talking about the outage or the secure signals that you've gotten that tell you that it's either like a security incident or some sort of cloud reliability event, and it's like neither team, if it's not like directly related to your part of the business, should just be like, all right, well, where are we going to eat lunch now? It's like there's
Opt out of the war room, like,
yeah,
okay, you
yeah,
all
yeah.
have
It's not
fun.
like, okay,
Yeah.
all of you are dismissed. It's like what can we learn about this issue? And I know, we talked about a little bit too that should happen in like a post-mortem. But some of that also should happen in real time where it's like, okay, maybe this is more of a infrastructure issue, but does that actually have security implications? Like, are there things that, it was like, is the cause and effect actually that cut and dry where it's only this group and not this group at all? I'm not sure that that exists. And I feel like we try and treat it like it does, but I don't know that it does.
Yeah. No, I mean I feel like the first part of an incident response, and whether it's security or it's, infrastructure or bad code or whatever, is in a normal office is blaming each other for the first 2 hours and getting heated. In a really good culture, it's like working together to try to figure out like what is this? Is this infrastructure? Is this security? But even if it's, let's say it's a problem in the infrastructure and it's not a security issue, there's still places if you're a good AppSec person, you'd still want to look through that incident. Now, if it's 2 o'clock in the morning, I'm gonna be like, peace, guys. But at the same time, I would probably want to leave them with some things like, hey, here's some things we can test. We can test this when you guys get up and running again before we push to prod. Like, there's some burp suite run stuff we can run through, or, you can look at the database for this to see if there's any sort of SQL injections or whatever. There's some things they could check along the way. And I feel like instead of just piecing out and at least leaving them some things to look at and being like, hey, I'll jump back in if we want to look at this stuff, you're building those bridges, you're building trust. And it goes the same way for the infrastructure guys. They're kind of stuck sometimes if it's a real breach because you're like, oh crap, now we have to see, like, did this get into, our intranet or whatever. But sometimes they just piece out too, especially if it's an AppSec problem. I've been left many times like, have fun for the next 4 months cleaning up this. Uh, but you want that goodwill both ways.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that is part of the bridge building. And even going back to our CFO thing, I mean, we even had that with, when Roland came on the podcast, and, for anyone listening, it was a great episode. You should go check that one out. But about like defending your budget, in those incidents, in those moments, that's when you really need to rely on those relationships that you have across the organization, where maybe it's an infrastructure issue, but it could have been picked up by a security tool and like alerted sooner. And that's a moment when your security leader could be like, hey, CFO, like, we have this solution. This could have caught this infrastructure issue. We can upgrade our solution and have this fit in the budget and still catch these issues. So overall, as a team, we have less downtime and kind of build those connections and break down those silos. Because I think, ultimately, hopefully, all of these teams are working towards the same end goal of having, applications and infrastructure that's reliable and secure. Like, that's the hope, is that things just run smoothly and they don't get sucked into these super stressful 2 a.m. war rooms.
Well, and there's this thing in postmortem that if you're going over through the breach, there's so much to learn. Like, I don't care. I mean, there's some amazing people out there, but if you ask, an AppSec leader to describe all the infrastructure in their company, they probably laugh at you. They don't know everything. They don't even know half the stuff that's internet facing, because there's all this shadow IT and stuff like that. So it's a really good time to be able to check into those things and be like, oh, this is something I can learn. And it's the same time for the infrastructure guys. Like, they might not know, what a buffer overflow attack is or what a,
Mm.
blah, 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 or like whatever we're doing. And it's a good time to, like, if you take that instead of just being like, oh, we screwed up, we fixed it, here's this for the C-suite so they won't fire us all. Like, there should be some learning in there. Like, good companies with good teams and smart people can all learn from each other. And it shouldn't be so siloed and adversarial, which I've seen a lot. It should be this like, we're a team.
Yeah. I see you're going to say something, Adam. I mean, I think one
Go
of the
for it.
things
Yeah.
is as well, though, is that I'm thinking that you just reminded me of, David. Sorry, Adam, to cut you out. But it
No,
was
no.
just one of those things that I think as well is like everybody is working under their own deadlines as well. Like, I think
Yep.
about tech debt and like security debt and things like that, that a lot of these things come from. Like, no one wants to push bad code. No one wants to have like shaky infrastructure. I mean, maybe they do. Maybe you want to point the fingers, but I think that's part of it as well, is that like in the war room and we're pointing fingers and all of that sort of stuff. There's just that piece of like, no one did this intentionally. No one left a vulnerability on purpose, or no one, was ignoring a threat indicator on purpose. It's like, everybody's busy, and then you get sucked into a war room, and that distracts you from the next threat and the next issue and all the rest.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there are like situations where maybe from a financial decision or something along those lines, leadership's like, no, we're just not going to do that, which is fine. Like, there's business decisions that happen security. I know all the security nerds out there are like, no, we need to be Vault zero, but like that's just not how the world works. Um, but what I used to do is push risk on them. So it's like, okay, and you can do this with infrastructure too. This is like a really good way to be going through these things. It's like, hey, we're not going to pay for this tool that'll help us organize our clusters. Like, we're just not going to do it. Okay, that's fine. This is what our downtime predicted will be without that tool. I just need you to take the risk for this and sign off for it. We're not going to spend $800,000 to fix this set of vulns because we're probably only going to, lose $200,000 if they're exploited. Okay, that's perfectly fine. You just have to sign off on that. And I think when people have that kind of relationship, then it's good because it's not that blaming relationship. Now you have like your executives or your directors or whatever taking responsibility for risk, which risk is shared throughout the whole company. People haven't figured this out. It's not the CISO. The CISO holds no risk. If he's doing it correctly, because he's a scapegoat for these bad companies, but for good companies, the board holds the risk or the C-suite holds the risk. So
What you just said is kind of what I was thinking earlier, which is like, and it was kind of a little bit of a neither here nor there thought, but you kind of pulled it together with what you were just saying, which is like, I can see how a security issue or a security incident would cause a reliability issue. Hard to see, man, maybe I'm just not thinking of it the right way of how a reliability issue could cause a security issue, although I'm sure there are
Oh, I
scenarios.
have one.
Yeah.
I have one. Shadow AIT. I mean, you
Yeah.
have someone who vibe coded something, and maybe the code is a bit brittle and like unreliable, and also introduces some potential vulnerabilities into the mix. Like, I think
Yeah. The
that's
code element.
the
Yeah.
code element
100%.
of it,
Yeah.
or like the way that a cluster was stood up. Like, maybe there is a piece there of like, hey, we just had to hustle this up in a hurry, and it led to some reliability issues. And also we weren't thinking around security either. And
Yeah.
so it could be that too.
Yeah.
yeah, there's a lot of security that comes from infrastructure stuff, vulnerability. So like you said, putting stuff up in a hurry, not using good best practices, right? You didn't set your firewall correctly. You didn't set your WAF up. You just pushed this out. Another big one is building stuff that you shouldn't be building. Like, this is why I push for people to use MCP, and even better, I
Yeah.
think, is to use, things like Agent Core and like third-party MCPs that are tested, and already have attestations on them. Because if you ever saw anybody build a database, up until recently, no one was sanitizing. I mean, that's kind of how I made my, security career, is just SQL injecting everything on the spot. There's a very big company where I was meeting with their big dev because they didn't have a security team, and he's like, "Well, look at what we're doing with it." I could drop literally all the tables for the company in one SQL command. I mean, everybody's information, home address, credit cards, nothing was stored correctly. We won't say who that is because I'll get sued. But
Mhm.
And I would
and,
like to
and this
sleep at
is
night,
this
David.
this
I
was
would
a
like to not be
public.
terrified all the time.
Yeah, but it's getting better. But this is, I mean, back then, this was a company that was about to go public, right? So if you don't set up your infrastructure correct, you have more security problems across the board. And if you try to build stuff because you're this awesome butterfly who's made of diamonds and just does no wrong, and you didn't sanitize, you didn't build everything out, you just created a world of pain. That's the whole point of, you know, we talked about the model control plane and model context protocol. Like, one sanitizes and one's a system. So it's the same for AI. Everybody's building AI, but are they doing it the right way? Are they putting sanitization in place and safeguards in place?
Yeah. Nice. We did talk about AI for a moment. Is there a kind of an AI angle on the reliability side that y'all think is particularly interesting?
I do. Yeah. So like we've brought this up a little bit, but the whole concept of I hate the word observability so much. I also hate that my texts
It's
are
a good,
going off
this
on
is
the
a
podcast.
therapeutic discussion in that way, though, right?
Gosh, dude, it's so frustrating because it doesn't make any sense when you say it like this. But to have like white box AI, to have some sort of AI that you can track how it's working is super important, and no one's really allowing that to happen. So you need logging. If you set it up wrong, like let's say your RAG file is broken and it's not connecting to its agents correctly, and you're burning tens of thousands of tokens because it's just buffering and not doing it correctly. Like now you have a business case. You probably don't have sanitization if you're set up that way anyways. So now you have a security case. So you have an infrastructure problem that's costing the business money, and then easily a reputational problem, maybe a real security problem that can cost the company money. So, but you wouldn't know because you have nothing set up to observe your AI infrastructure. You don't have logging on it, and if you do, it's like sign in, like single sign on. You
Yeah,
don't have token control. You don't have all those kind of things. And some people do. Don't get me wrong, but I'm saying most guys who are like pushing crap on the market right now, because I've looked at it, they don't really have that. So like, how do you know it's working efficiently? How do you know there's not a security problem? You don't.
yeah.
I mean, I think the other piece that I'm curious about is like the people who are trying to use AI to observe, I don't know, observability, but to try and, have that visibility into their systems and are saying like, okay, AI, eat all this data. Like, please ingest all this information and then tell me what's happening, you know, awesome in terms of visibility, but also terrifying for our security friends who we, hear about in the war room later. Like, why did you give all of this to the AI and the AI spilled the tea on everything? And now,
Right.
like, now where are we? And so I think there's that piece as well of like, AI can be magical for this stuff. Like the way that AI can consume just unfathomable amounts of data and give you information is, remarkable. And yes, anding that, there's the piece where, this could lead to better collaboration between teams where like now, someone could serve up the logs and say to the security team, like, it looks like it could be us, but it might impact you. Like, let's talk about this. Or it could lead to even more rifts between these teams as security people go, like, can you please stop with the AI? Like, can you stop giving away all of our data?
Let's let's go back to the silos with what you just mentioned, because this is the problem. The reason this is such a bad thing right now is these AI architects are not security people, and it's siloed again. So ChatGPT hasn't been building stuff securely. Microsoft obviously hasn't with theirs. And I hacked ChatGPT 3 and 4. I haven't messed with 5 yet, but
Yet.
they all have prompt injection problems. None of them are securely set up for data because they're basically scraping the entire internet. They're trying to get everything they can. And they're inherently a security problem for the big guys. But all the companies coming, I get it. You want to go to market, and it's an arms race right now. Like we are playing nuclear chess, like you know, maybe checkers in my case. But there you're not seeing the security guys keeping. I'm trying my like darndest. Like I have been researching, and I'm a marketing guy now, but I want to stay on top of this because we have a really good group of people building stuff. I want to make sure we're doing it correctly. So luckily I get to be in there and I can say my mind. A lot of these companies, they're just going to market. And we're going to see some, I mean, the Microsoft thing was little. We're going to see a ton of problems, especially because they're not like obeying easy best practices. So like on I've built some pretty crazy databases that can do chunked encoding so AI can dig through them with Weaviate and all these kind of new tools, right? Those have to be self-hosted to a certain degree. Bringing your own keys for the API for your models is going to be a huge thing soon because now you're isolating data in something that inherently does not isolate data. You have these things jumping around, looking at things, opening tool sets, all this kind of stuff. So we're about to hit a place in the market where we're going to see people just destroying these tools. Jason Haddix is a guy who I've talked at conferences with over the years, and he's just a beast. Like, and he's crushing everybody's AI models right now. And like, I wish I was still in the research space a little bit just so I could be doing this with them because it's hilarious. And these are top security companies that are getting crapped on. So
Yeah.
none of them have observability for it.
Well, if the last few minutes of this discussion have sold me on anything, it's that like even more so now, security is observability and observability is security. Like you businesses really just don't have the luxury, if it ever was one, to be like, you're over there and we're over here. It's like we're the same, we have the same goal. We need to be using the same resources and the same information to not only serve our customers, but also to like keep everyone safe as we do it. It's so yeah,
There's a fundamental problem I think that can be solved, but it goes against like how we hire usually. So usually you hire like a VP of security development now, right? Like they're almost different than your CTO and your CDO and they're like, I'm the AI guy. But the problem is that that AI guy should have been a security guy. But they're not, the security guys aren't there. Like they don't have the big names. They didn't get fired from, from one of the big five AI companies or anything. And now they're at your company. But what I don't see is why aren't we seeing like a head of AI security at most of these companies? You're seeing it a couple times. I've seen a couple of those titles jump up, but like I think they should be going along. If you're going to have someone, I guess they're all under the CTO technically or whatever, but if you're going to have this head of AI, VP security, there needs to be a VP of AI security with the VP of AI development alongside, and they need to have like attention there. They need to have equal ground because there needs to be pushback on how we're building stuff.
Mm.
yeah,
But I agree, Adam. I think, we've had the conversation to say like, yes, I think the question that we started with of, can SREs and SOC analysts be besties? Are observability and security the same thing? I would say yes, they are, as long as we can break down some of these silos. I think as long
yeah,
as we tell people they're on separate teams and they don't have to be responsible, or even interested in other reasons why things could go wrong or go right. Like, as long as they're silos, they are separate. But as soon as you start breaking it all down, ultimately it's the same thing where, they hopefully are serving their customer and letting them pay their mortgages online and letting
yeah,
them move on with their
right.
days,
Yeah.
And it's all the CFO's fault. We figured that out.
Yeah, there you
Right. Yeah.
go.
Awesome. Well, this has been a fun discussion. Like I always go into these things thinking that I have an opinion, and the discussion always kind of brings out new things that I wasn't even thinking about ahead of time. So, love it. This was another good example of that. Thank you again, David and Zoe. Appreciate the time, and we'll see everyone on the next episode.
Thanks so much.
Thanks.
Bye.